Welcome to the Manifesting Millions podcast, where we talk about manifestation, money, and practical guidance to creating your dream reality. My name is Amy Van Meel, and I am an experienced coach and transformation guide, obsessed with helping you get out of your own way and create a life that blows your mind each day you wake up. My goal in this podcast is to share practical manifestation, self-awareness, and growth techniques in real talk conversations. So if you're ready to massively transform your reality, your finances, your relationships, and your overall enjoyment of life, you are in the right place. I am absolutely delighted that you're here with me today, babe. Let's get into it. Hello, my beautiful souls. Welcome back to the podcast. It's a gloomy kind of day here in Calgary. We went from what was full-on spring vibes to straight back into winter. Now, you know me, I love winter, so I'm 100% okay with this. But yeah, we had green grass and almost all the snow on the ground was gone. And today the entire world is white. I think we got something like 10 centimeters of snow overnight, and the snow keeps coming. So yeah, it's kind of lovely. It also means that I'm having a cozier day inside, no more running outside for a little while. And I'm back off of a few days in Vancouver. So still getting back into the energy of just kind of being at home and like working on my business. And oh my goodness, it tired me out being away for a few days. So yeah, I'm excited to bring today's podcast episode to you. I've been really thinking deeply about this podcast and receiving some powerful insights and messages for weeks now. I've been in deep creation mode, surrounded by the creation vortex. Information, wisdom, and knowledge has just been flowing out of me as I've been writing the Building Empires program, which is my transformational money program designed to help you empower yourself and become your financially fearless, most powerful self. Now, what's perhaps surprised me the most throughout the process of writing the Building Empires program is that while I am writing and sharing information to benefit all of my students, the universe has been pouring into me insights and revelations and massive transformations for my own life. It's like this beautiful, amazing, expansive, reciprocal loop. As I allow my wisdom to flow into my students' lives, more insight and growth flows into my awareness and my life. And to be honest, it's kind of addictive. I've been rewriting my own deep money patterns throughout writing the whole program. And recently I did a really powerful exercise that I wanted to share with you today. So very often, when we begin to step into any transformation journey, we're asked to journal on our past experiences. So when it comes to money, for example, I've seen many journaling prompts related to what was said about money when we were young, how our parents or caregivers spoke about or experienced money, questions about what we believe to be true about money, and how we experience money in our lives currently, and lots more. Now, over the course of more than 10 years of personal growth and self-transformation work, I've been prompted over and over and over again to review, assess, and write out my life story, to understand what was programmed into my subconscious, to better understand why I'm experiencing my life in its current state. And this process gave me a really powerful gift. It allowed me to reflect without judgment from others about the happenings of my life. So I could speak or write honestly about the hurt and the pain and the struggles I've endured in my life. It gave me countless awarenesses of beliefs and patterns and habits that weren't serving me. It allowed me to bear witness to my life, specifically experiences and events of my life that had historically been dismissed by my family or loved ones, told that I was lying about, or outright denied by others. It's one thing for us to bear pain, but it's quite another to have that pain dismissed, denied, or diminished. It leaves a deeply cancerous hole in our soul because there is healing power in witnessing our pain. And when that gift is not given to us, it eats away at us. Now we can see this by how folks hold on to pain, how it becomes their foundation for how they approach life. They have had very little or no opportunity to truly see, witness, and release their pain. And we can absolutely do this for ourselves, but it's also important for another to offer us that gift. So a few years ago, I met one of my dearest friends. She is strong and wise. She's a little bit older than I am, which I find is sometimes helpful. And she had suffered deeply in her life, but she had also been doing the deep and powerful work of healing her experiences. She is brave and kind, and she taught me about the power of witnessing one another. So one morning, about 2 weeks ago, as I was having my morning coffee, I had an idea. What if I wrote my autobiography, but from the foundation that my entire life had been abundant? Now, integrity is one of my highest values, so I couldn't just go in and lie. I wanted to be truthful about my life and recount it with accuracy, but instead of looking to uncover hurts, pain, and unserving beliefs, I looked to uncover all the ways I was abundant. I based this exercise on a tool called revision. So revision is a really powerful tool that we can use anytime, whereby we step back in time in our mind to an experience or an event that left us feeling something undesirable, and we rewrite it in our mind into an alternate experience. So for example, I had a frustrating experience in traffic where a male driver was obstinately blocking the road and wouldn't move over, even though he had an open area to his right and I had nothing but parked cars to my right, so there was nowhere for me to move. He sat in his car, shouting at me and waving his hands and arms angrily, while I pointed directly to the area beside his car that he could move over to so we could both pass by on the street. We could just keep going. Now, exchanges like this would often leave me feeling shaky and frustrated and really disempowered, and they would run in my mind for days. I'd go over and over and over it, thinking about all the different ways that I could have approached it, what I could have done. I know I'm not alone, so if you're nodding yes, I know what that's like. What I decided instead was that I was going to apply a revision and change this experience. So in my mind, I went back to the beginning of this experience and I simply envisioned the entire event happening completely differently. He moved over so we could both easily pass by one another. He waved at me kindly and we carried on with our day. I anchored this revision by going slightly past the event in my mind and envisioned that I was feeling happy and had a joyful trip to the grocery store. So I learned about revision from my coach, who reminds me often that time is not real and that we can experience anything we want to right now. In fact, your subconscious mind and your body do not experience time. They only know the present. So if you start thinking fearful thoughts of being attacked, for example, your subconscious mind doesn't know that this is not presently happening, and it thereby responds as if it were. It activates your sympathetic nerve system, which is your fight or flight system, and it causes your body to activate a state of stress and high alert. Now, this is really important for us when we're actually in danger, but it's completely useless and even harmful when we're actually completely safe and fine, but we're thinking our way into a survival response. And if we do this long term, we can actually cause great physical damage to our body because we're not meant to be in this sustained, stressful state. So if we can use our mind to travel back and forward in time, which we do all the time when we think of memories or we dream of future possibilities or we worry about future worries, it makes sense that we can use our mind to travel to a moment in our timeline and rewrite it. And this is the tool of revision. So I titled my autobiography, The Mother of All Revisions. And I set to work writing out my life story from a foundation that my life has always been abundant. And holy freaking crap. As I wrote, I became aware of just how much abundance existed in my entire life. So, for example, while my earlier autobiographies tended to focus on how we had very little money, this time I realized that we always had healthy food to eat. We had 3 meals a day, we had snacks and treats like chips on the weekend, and as any self-respecting Dutch person would, chocolate sprinkles for our sandwiches. We lived on a farm that had literal miles of open space to play and explore, and I loved being outside. I realized that all of my life I effortlessly manifested what I wanted. I didn't remember suffering for my desires until much later, after I was ceaselessly shamed by my sibling and guilted by my mother. I saw timelines overlap where I realized that my affirmation that I have today that says I always get what I want was almost identical to what my sister used to sneer at me, "You always get what you want," as she shamed me for effortlessly manifesting. I saw event after event unfolding where I had abundance. I went to culinary school right out of high school. I ate really well for the whole year. I took home all the leftovers, and I finished the year 15 pounds lighter. I realized that I was desired. It did not occur to me that I had attended prom every year that I was in high school. My grade 9 year, I went to my sister's graduation, but in grades 10 and 11, I was asked by a boy who was graduating, having zero idea that this likely meant they desired me in some way. Yes, I am completely obtuse to those things. And then in grade 12, I went to prom with a guy that I had been crushing on for months. I began to see that over and over and over in my life, while I was entirely oblivious, I was actually very much desired. I became aware that while I previously saw myself living on my own during university as proof that I was broke, it was actually hugely abundant. I was living on my own, paying for rent and groceries and fuel for my car while also paying for tuition and art supplies. Yes, I had very little money to speak of, and I absolutely graduated with student loans, but how many others did I know that had lived on their own and paid their way through university? I actually thought about this as I was writing this and realized I didn't actually know anybody. I had spent the last 25 years thinking that my life had been a series of being broke, broken, and miserable, that these were the prices to feeling like I belonged, that I didn't know how to manifest what I wanted unless I suffered greatly for it, when in fact, it wasn't until I began to be berated, shamed, guilted, and diminished that these beliefs set in. Before that, I manifested with effortless ease, and there were trace marks of this effortless manifestation throughout my entire life. Now, I want to be super clear. I did not approach this exercise with an "I should be grateful" filter. I deeply disagree when someone expresses pain or hurt or longing or lack and they're told, "Yeah, but think about how good this is," or "True, but there are so many others who have it so much worse than you," or even, "Okay, but like at least you have all your senses and abilities. There are people who can't even walk or see or hear," i.e., you should be grateful even though you're in deep pain and suffering right now. I'm here to tell you that's fucking garbage. One person's suffering does not exalt or diminish another's. If someone else has different hurts, for example, they got raped, they lost a limb in an accident, they grew up starving and poor, that does not mean that your struggle that you're feeling right now, perhaps you're having a really hard time in your relationship. Maybe you're feeling really frustrated because your goals just aren't coming to pass. Maybe you're really struggling financially. Like, none of those things become less painful or hard because somebody else in the world is having a different kind of struggle. I just want you to know that in case you've not heard that before. You don't have to struggle more in order to qualify for having your emotions. All right? What I did do with this exercise was approach it with an intent to uncover abundance in my life. everything I wrote down was true. It happened. Remember, I have a very high value in integrity. So it all happened, but because I wrote it with the intent to uncover abundance, it rewrote my entire foundation of belief of my life up to that point. It completely shifted my perspective of my experiences and how I grew up and what I don't want to say experienced again, but I'm going to say experienced again, what I experienced as a teen and in my 20s and in my 30s. So I encourage you to give this a try. Set aside like a half an hour or so to write your autobiography and write the story of your life from a filter of abundance. So in this case, you'll likely leave out hurtful or trauma experiences unless there's an element of abundance in there. And I do want to say you're not guilting yourself into it by going, well, this sucked, but look at all the good that came out of it, right? You already know the good that came out of it. I want you to go looking for what is the undercurrent of abundance that has existed in your life all along. And it doesn't need to be an in-depth review of your life. You're not, like if you're 20, 30, 40, 60, you're not writing a book explaining your whole life. I just went back to when I was little and I wrote out anything that came to mind. I literally just allowed information and insights to flow through me. So I skipped entire years of my life, and much of what I wrote was in broad strokes. But the specifics, those were related to things like how our yard was laid out, or my favorite places to play or explore, or things like realizing that I had gone to prom all the years of high school, right? Those specifics that really were clear indications of the abundance that existed in my life. So I'd love to know what you discover as you rewrite your life from the foundation of abundance. Please let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram at Amy Van Meel. I always have the link in the show notes. And if you've gained any value from this episode, I would so appreciate if you share it with someone else and you leave me a review. Honestly, I would deeply appreciate both. And I am really thankful for your support of this podcast and my intent to raise women and all people really everywhere, because together I know we can change the world. All right, my beautiful babes, I will see you next week, and I wish you a wonderful week. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to share it with me by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform and help me reach more like-minded people who are ready to expand their life. If you haven't yet followed me on social media, find me on Instagram for extra love and inspiration by following at Amy Van Meel, or visit my website at amyvanmeel.com. I love you so much, babe, and I am damn proud of you. I am already excited to connect in the next episode. And in the meantime, believe in yourself with the confidence of a 5-year-old.